Let me link up the chat again. On it again. Yeah, I just wanted to finish off where I stopped at, and I want to find out the Chinese ministry or government. They had there was some statements that came out, and it was regard to foreign policy. So I want to see if I can pull that up. Of course, at first with this situation with Cuba, just to see some of the responses. So I'm going to start off here again. Let's see here. Of course, Biden removed the Cuba. I'm sorry, from the international terrorist thing or state of sponsor list, according to the United States and its allies, right? And or most of its allies, you could say trade allies, and there's been a reaction coming out because this just happened by Biden. This just happened. This was last night. This was yesterday. So the world needs time to react and see what that means, how the world is reacting. But I want to see how Cubans are.
President Biden using his final days in office to lift Cuba's terrorism designation. It's an effort to free political prisoners on the island. It would reverse the decision made during incoming President Trump's first term. CBS News Miami's Anna McAllister is live in Little Havana with what it means and how Cuban Americans are reacting.
Now, check this out. This is interesting because, look, Trump, what he said about towards Palestine, right? Now, just so folks know, I want to offer this again. I believe the conflict between Israel and Palestine is largely political, largely Cold War type stuff, largely because of the superpowers choosing sides and not cooperating. I believe it's induced that way. I don't believe it's something that the majority of Israelis or Palestinians want war, because it's illogical, it's irrational, and it destroys both of their future in one way or the other. In one way, more Palestinians is getting killed because U.S. Backs up its allies pretty much, and for a lot of different reasons, for their own defense, not because of the allies necessarily. It has to be two parts to that. It has to be that the defense backs up U.S. interests in the region too. It can't just be your own defense, and that's how most countries operate now. Most superpowers operate. So I believe it's politically induced. I would encourage Israeli citizens, and forget the governments and forget the political parties that want to go to war, that are willing to kill each other and lob bombs at each other and things like that. Forget them. As far as I'm concerned, they shouldn't be at the forefront of any conversation about the future, right? Because I believe that the future is based on them cooperating, and not just cooperating, two states. That's great. Not just cooperating, but just rational understanding that it doesn't help either one of you in your future to be at war with each other. Period. You have more in common alike than you have difference. So that's my opinion. But look, it's worth noting Trump takes a completely different approach to the hostages in Cuba. Isn't that right? Trump didn't come out and say he was going to blow Cuba out of the water. I mean, did Trump ever say that? No, but he said that regarding the hostages everywhere else, right? He said that regarding he didn't say, I don't know about Ukraine. He didn't say that. But he said it, he damn sure said it about Palestinians. If they don't, not Palestinians, but Hamas, because I don't consider Hamas necessarily Palestinian interest. So, but he said it about the hostages that Hamas took. Okay, he took a totally different approach with Cuba. We haven't heard about these hostages in years. We didn't, Trump he didn't even talk about it really. Trump didn't give a damn about the hostages in Cuba. I mean, that's obvious, because he would have been talking about it right now. On my first day of the election, first day of becoming president-elect, if Cuba doesn't do this, there will be hell to pay, sanctions, blah, blah, blah. He didn't do that. He didn't go that far. He didn't even mention it. But Biden just did something. So let's see what it says. I mean, Biden asked for the release of the hostages, the Israeli hostages from Hamas, and this was a deal brokered again, a diplomatic solution. A diplomatic solution. It wasn't a solution that came about with bombs, you know. Let's see.
Tonight, Anna.
Well, Lauren, the Cuban Americans that I've spoken to just over the last hour, they tell me they are not happy with this decision. They tell me that they're looking forward to next week when they say President Donald Trump, they
Oh, look. They said right there that Cuban Americans are not happy with this decision. But don't you want the hostages back? Like, I mean, hostages, prisoners back? Don't you want the prisoners back? You mean the Cuban Americans are not happy that a diplomatic solution was reached to get back prisoners that were locked up for, the U.S. argues for the wrong reasons, right? Prisoner swaps. You don't want that? You don't want these people released? Why is that? And that is so ironic because you'll never hear a Jewish person or Israeli, excuse me, not Jewish, but Israeli, saying that about their prisoners or their hostages or whatever. You will never hear them saying that. If they were held by an opposing force, they would want them back. And politically speaking, because I think South Americans, Central Americans, Caribbeans, North Americans, we're actually from the same, we share the same history. Remember, a lot of these Cuba used to be a colonial territory under the Spanish, and the Spanish took slaves from Africa, brought them to Cuba and other spaces there, and then disseminated them to South America, North America. So we're related. I don't really get again, the issue is political. It has nothing to do with culture. The issue is political. We eat the same foods. We pray into the same gods. We come in from the same places of origin. The stock, I'm talking about Native American, African, European. That's what that is primarily. Of course, you have some Asians and things like this today. I'm not trying to diss them. I'm talking about the main fabric of the main fabric of the human stock. It's bounded in history. So let's see. Let's go on.
Will reverse this decision. Now, according to CBS News, Lauren, like you mentioned, this is all part of a deal to release political prisoners in exchange for less restrictions between Cuba and the U.S. The Catholic Church facilitated this agreement to take place before Biden left office.
Now, you see that, again, going back to the history, right? Catholic Church, right? You see, and so, I don't know what it is that's being misunderstood here, but I think what would be newsworthy is, let me take this down. I think what would be newsworthy is if they do a little more journalism on who the Cuban Americans are. Just who are they? Who are those people exactly? Are they people that used to own hotels before the revolution? Are there people that had slave plantations before the revolution? Are there people that own most of the island of Cuba before the revolution? Or is it just average Joes, regular folk, the average Cuban? Because Cuba has a upper class, even though they claim not to have that kind of system in place. They have elites in Cuba, and Cuba has always had elites. Castro was from one of the elite families. Some of the revolutionaries are from the elitist families of Cuba. You see what I'm saying? Like, come on. But they made a change. They said, hey, something different can happen. And the revolution did not happen in Cuba because of communism or because of the United States of America, capitalism. It happened because they wanted better conditions for the regular people, for the multitude of the people, so there wouldn't be an elitist class in the first place. You see, Cuba went to the United States for help first. Before they went to Russia, Cuba went to their neighbor first. Before they went to someone far away from help. You see what I'm saying? So all of this needs to be in context when we listen to what's being said here, because again, Journalism, y'all. Is the journalism good? Is the journalism helping people? Is the journalism furthering a healthy politic? Or is the journalism helping the billionaire class? Let's find out.
Senior government officials, they say President Donald Trump, they believe, will reverse this decision. Now,
tonight, Anna?
Well, Lauren, the Cuban Americans that I've spoken to just over the last hour, they tell me they are.
Look, the Cuban Americans that I've spoken to over the last hour. Excuse me, lady. Who are they? Who are they? Are they fictional characters? Are they billionaires? Are they millionaires? Who are those people? That counts in politics. And so I would have to say, in terms of journalism, this report gets an F for failure.
Are not happy with this decision. They tell me that they're looking forward to next week when they say President Donald Trump, they believe.
And look, this is a CBS Miami affiliate. You know what I'm saying? This is CBS News Miami. Y'all, I'm telling you, I'm just telling you. Look, I mean, yeah.
Reverse this decision. Now, according to CBS News, Lauren, like you mentioned, this is all part of a deal to release political prisoners in exchange for less restrictions between Cuba and the U.S. The Catholic Church.
So what do the Cuban Americans that she talked to want? They don't care about the political prisoners being released?
Facilitated this agreement.
Why is that?
To take.
Who were they? Were they journalists?
Place before Biden left office. Senior government officials.
Are they even American spies? I mean, why wouldn't you want them released?
They say there's
a lot of them are just journalists, to be honest with you. But from what I heard, some of them at least are journalists. I mean, why wouldn't you want them released?
Evidence based on recent assessments to support Cuba being on the sponsor of terrorism.
Hey, Donnie, let me know if you can hear the audio for the video, bro.
List, but the decision will likely be reversed when President-elect Trump takes office. Marco Rubio, who's nominated to be the Secretary of State, is Cuban, and his family fled the country in the 1950s. He and
You see, his family left the country in the 1950s. That was during the revolution. And what happened to Cuba during that time? There were elitists that owned everything, and the average person was left to be dead, was left to fend for themselves. Like straight up. That's what it is. So Marco Rubio, you know, I'm wondering, is his family part of that elitism? I don't know. Let me check that out. But I'm going to check that out. But because I'm not trying to just stick to Marco Rubio. But let's see here. Oh, my God. These are the Trump people. They just went out there. Don't tell me they don't have any other folks.
Cuban and his family fled the country in the 1950s. He and other Republicans have been outspoken about their concerns with Cuba and its dictatorship. And we heard from locals about Biden's anticipated move.
We're hoping that Trump can resolve this problem because he will have power as president to be able to change everything bad that the Democrats have done, to be able to change it and find a way so that we can find a way for the U.S. to continue being what it is, strong, and so that the ones they put on the list of terrorism need to stay there. How are you going to take them out of the list of terrorism? That government has been killing people there for 75 years.
The Florida Democratic Party also condemning Biden's anticipated decision on Cuba, releasing this statement saying, in part, while any return of political prisoners from the clutches of communist Cuba is cause for celebration, the regime's treatment of the Cuban people continues to be one of the biggest human rights violations of the last century. It would be naive to think this is negotiated.
Listen to what these folks are saying. Listen to this. And I really hope this audio is working. Let me see something. I really hope it's working. Let me just double check here for a second. There's something that's not adding up. Yeah, there's something that's not adding up. Let me just check this. Right, it is. Okay, I got it. Thanks. Now, it's something that's not adding up here because look at this. Trump is moving towards Putin. And right, he's moving towards Putin. Putin has been really backing up places like Cuba. So what? I don't get it. They think that it's safer, but really, what I would say is this pulls Cuba towards democracy. It reduces tensions because it gives Putin one less And it gives China one less tool to use. And regarding Cuba, right, they're stuck in the middle. They're a small island. They depend on trade. They depend on others for defense. It's just a fact. Now, are you going to defend and are you going to try to work with Cubans as a neighbor? Or are you going to have a hostile relationship with Cuba as a neighbor? How do you do that? How do you navigate that? Well, diplomacy, because either you think Cubans are just naturally evil and will always be evil, or you think they're human beings like everyone else and simply are trying to survive and want more opportunities to survive and do well. You have to choose which one it is, though. And I don't think Cubans are evil. I think they're like everybody else. They want more opportunities to survive and have a better life as Cubans. Now, it's either going to be that China or Russia helps Cubans so with that survive, or it's going to be their neighbor, the United States of America, does. Whichever one. But right now, it seems like we have a tendency to have way too many Americans in the United States too ready to always make Cuba an enemy, always have a political dilemma with Cuba. And it seems like it's largely self-imposed. Like we didn't help Cuba when they asked for help, when they had the revolution. Those were the days where segregation existed in the United States of America for many people. So to use that as we have to understand that's what we're talking about. In the days of segregation, in the days of people having independence struggles across the world to escape oppression, Cuba came to the United States as a neighbor and asked for help, and we didn't help. We didn't help Castro with that revolution. The revolution succeeded. Cuba found itself in a new position, but it had no partner. That's how it began its relationship with Russia. That's how it began its relationship with communism. They're not they're not any more uh, stuck on communism than they are Russia. Because look what happened to communism in Russia. It failed. Look what happened to China. I mean, they are still operating like that, but on the surface, they will tell you they're not a communist government. They will tell you they're open to free trade. They will tell you they don't have, they want private industry, and they do that. But you could see behind the scenes, they're doing a lot of maneuvering. Russia, is that state industry or do they have private industry? You tell me. So you see, things have changed, and we have to get out of that thinking where we're getting locked into really like trigger zones and tropes, and really start looking at things on the ground. Cuba is a neighbor of the United States. Cuba is a neighbor to many other Caribbean islands and South America, pretty much, right? So plenty of people know from meeting Cubans what Cubans think. We don't need the news to tell us what it is, but it's just an example. Actually, this will give you an example of what the problem is if you listen to the news. Look.
Exchange would signal a change in treatment for the Cuban people. Negotiated exchange would signal a change in treatment for Cuba is cause for celebration.
Look at this. Florida Democratic Party head. Okay, so this is a different voice. This is not the Trumpsters. This dude got a Trump hat on, man. I hope so. Anyway.
The Florida Democratic Party also condemning Biden's anticipated decision on Cuba, releasing this.
Okay, they're condemning Biden, the Florida Democratic Party. Okay.
Statement saying in part, while any return of political prisoners from the clutches of communist Cuba is cause for celebration, the regime's treatment of the Cuban people continues to be one of the biggest human rights violations of the last century.
Listen, poor policy on Cuba is pretty much responsible for what's going on in Cuba. Poor policy. And it's not, there's many allies of the United States that have criticized them regarding Cuba. Now most people that criticize the United States that are allies, they don't do it to try to diminish the image of the United States. They recognize plenty of good that the United States does, right? But they do it softly. And if you listen to those words, it's still criticism regarding this matter. That's why if you were to fly from Denmark, for example, you don't have any issue flying from Denmark to Cuba. Why? Because they softly did not go along with that type of decision making. If you want to fly from the United States, people being stopped. Cubans can't even fly to the United States, pretty much. Or if it's not like that, it's been like that for some point in time, right? And long periods of time. But it wasn't like that from Denmark. If you try to fly from Sweden to Cuba, you can go there. You see what I mean? So this decision, it puts the U.S., not this decision, but the decision to keep being hostile towards Cuba, it's not in the United States' interest. And it's also largely imposed, but the relationship has largely been damaged because of past decisions the United States made. Again, the Cuban people were fighting for freedom and fighting for fairness from elitists that owned every single thing. And at that time, when they were having that revolution, they came to the United States for help, the revolutionaries, and the United States did not help. But that was in the 50s when segregation was law in the United States of America. So we have to stop allowing people that were okay with those days dictate what our future is like. Young people are tired of this shit, and yeah, so
it would be naive to think this is negotiated exchange would signal a change in treatment for the Cuban people. And former President Obama, he also lifted the sponsor of terrorism on Cuba before he left office. And then when President-elect Donald Trump, when he first took his first term, he reversed that decision to uphold them being on that list. And coming up tonight at 6, 7, 10 o'clock, and 11 o'clock, we're going to hear more from locals and from elected officials. But for now, reporting live from Versailles in Little.
Now, I want to check out some other sources on this matter. Let me see. Let's go back to that. Boom. Okay. And it's so funny. This algorithm, the news algorithm right now, you're not going to get, it's so funny how the algorithm is picking networks. Where are the networks? Listen, y'all, if I come here and I type in Biden removes Cuba, right? These are not the networks. Look, there's CBS, then there's Al Jazeera. Look, where are the other networks? There's NBC Montana. I don't want to hear a repeat of the exact same thing. But what I would like to see is Cubans in Cuba. And this is part of the problem. Their media is blocked. So you don't really get to know what they think, largely through media, Cuban people. Now, this is weird because Biden had imposed sanctions on Cuba officials. That's different than the entire island. And that is targeted towards officials. But you have right wingers that just want to punish every human being, claiming that somehow it's to help people, and it's not. If the sanctions and the punishments, the punitive damages are not targeted towards government and are just unilaterally for all people on the island, what you're doing is hurting people that are pretty much just like every other person that's born on any American continent, and we all share the same history. So we need to start understanding that. Now, let me see. This is why don't they show, like, where is this? There's nothing from Cuba, bro. Damn. Look at this. This is 15 years ago. Associated Press. This is what comes up. I think y'all, places like Associated Press and others, they're getting blocked through the algorithm these days, yo. I'm telling you. The media is really being controlled right now, just out of the blue. Let me see something here. And I've noticed a stark change just in the last couple of weeks.
Need for a transition in our policy toward Cuba, but that we all share one thing in common. We think the Cuban people should determine their own fate, and that they should be able to live in freedom and with some prospect of economic prosperity. President Obama and I sought these offices because we had a fundamental disagreement with the policies of the last administration. We don't question them.
What did he say?
They should be able to live in freedom and with some prospect of economic prosperity. President Obama and I sought these offices because we had a fundamental disagreement
15 years
with
ago.
the policies of the last administration. We don't question the motive of the last administration. We question seriously their policies. And it's a little bit like that old metaphor you talk. It takes a while to turn around a super tanker. We are moving as rapidly as we can.
There it is. Now, would you rather have wars and killing because you have poor diplomacy skills? That is what the right wing pretty much focuses on. Harshness, cruelty. Again, Cuba is the way it is today pretty much because the United States did not lend them a hand when they needed it. And the reason why the United States didn't lend them a hand when they needed it back during the revolution is because the United States was having problems itself with elitism and racism and the effects of Jim Crow and things like this. You see what I mean? Cuba was even more extreme, but the United States government at that time didn't want to help them come out of elitism, of Jim Crow, of slavery type conditions. And so that has to change. And how do you change it? It's by trying to meet them where you believe they're ready to meet. And Cubans have never anytime the United States has reached out to them with a hand, Cuba and its government has happily accepted it until somebody like Trump comes along and just doesn't care about anyone and just crushes them all. Again, Trump, he's not hurting the politicians of Cuba. He's not hurting the elitists. He's only hurting the people. I mean, he's only hurting the people, with his policy. So let me step off of this. That is so funny how you only get something in the algorithm from 15 years ago, y'all, about Cuba. How did they not? Let me see something here. Associated. I don't know. Is that an accident? Associated. Come on. Press. Okay. I don't understand why they didn't cover this. That's pretty strange. Look at this.
Skal du til at bygge din hjemmeside i WordPress?
It says again, this is good foreign diplomacy for the United States. Biden's look at this.
Start by recognizing the remarkable protests that are taking place in Cuba. The Cuban people demanding their freedom from an authoritarian regime. And I don't think we've seen anything like this protest in a long, long time, if quite frankly ever.
Now, Cubans at that time, what is this? 3 years ago, Cubans at that time they were protesting. And what they were protesting is they were protesting against the regime while Trump had those sanctions, right, in place, that Cuba terrorist thing in place. Biden, he welcomed those people to protest. But let's hear what he says. We stand with the people.
The United States stands firmly with the people of Cuba as they assert their universal rights. And we call on the government of Cuba to refrain from violence or attempts to silence the voice of the people of Cuba. And we're also closely following the developments in Haiti in the wake of the horrific assassination of the president that recently took place. The people of Haiti deserve peace and security, and Haiti's political leaders need to come together for the good of their country. Over the weekend, I dispatched a high-level expert delegation to assess the situation and to determine where the United States can offer our support. And finally, as a close neighbor and friend of the people of both Cuba and Haiti, the United States stands ready to continue to provide assistance, and I'll have more for you as we move on.
All right, let me just come back out of that one. So Biden, he's not an ideologue, right? He is not taking a harsh, he's taking gradual steps. You know, that's how I view it. Small steps, and then looking at what happens, you know. Why someone would be so opposed to it? Listen, Cuban people can still stand up and protest. Cuban people inside of Cuba can still protest against the regime. What good is keeping them on a terrorist list going to do? What good does that do? I mean, what is the hope that you're waiting for? Are you waiting for Russia and China to come and change Cuba to make it democratic? What do you, because they were against that. So there's something missing in the story. I mean, I'm just doing this to show you there's a whole lot that's newsworthy that is missing from this story that's coming up. So all right, let me get out of this. There was something about China. China news. They had an announcement that is just some days ago. Maybe is it about this flu? They say it's not okay, but there was something else. The government made a statement. Philippines alarmed after China sent. Okay, Canada joined forces to monitor South China Sea. That's a day ago. It seems like things are getting, you know,
Can the U.S.
seems like something's happening, and yeah, somebody said time for Canada to make their military bigger, and it seems like it now. For people that that seem to be caught out there in the U.S. politics of, you know, picking and choosing what side are you on, who are you okay with, this kinds of stuff. There's a lot of people in America, activists, that have been somewhat, not all the activists obviously, but there's a fringe of them that seem to kind of promote an idea that what's going on in the world is capitalistic problems with capitalism. And it's really ironic. And they use words like socialism. Socialism is when you have healthcare. Socialism is when you have a fire department show up. Socialism is, and then capitalism being the opposer. Capitalism is when you have a fire and the ambulance doesn't show up. Capitalism is when you lose your home and the insurance company doesn't cover you. Wrong. Do the research yourself. There's plenty of capitalistic countries. In fact, there's more capitalistic countries on earth that have universal health care than don't. Far more. There's more capitalistic countries on earth that have universal health care than there are socialist ones. That's the real fact of the matter. There's more capitalistic countries that have free higher learning than socialist ones that exist. I mean, this is just the facts. You got to look at the facts. Don't look at your don't be an ideologue and just look at the facts. Things change in time. There's plenty of capitalistic countries, more capitalistic countries on earth that are taking strides and believe in global warming and are taking real investments on global warming than socialist countries. Those are the facts, y'all. You have to dig up the facts yourself. Don't just believe something just because you see a meme on Facebook or you see a meme on TikTok or because you hear somebody with some isolated views. Yo, TikTok, shit, I should be on TikTok even though I'm not, because I don't want somebody blackmailing me later because they got my private information or some shit. The Chinese government has my information. I don't want that. I don't want them attacking my family members because the Chinese government doesn't like what I'm saying or something. Forget that. And although, there's a chance that that could also go on in the US, the way the billionaires are behaving, right? We tend to have more laws that are fighting this and more accountability than a lot of these countries. Now, Western democracies do. I am not saying that it's perfect either. And I'm not saying that there's not a whole lot more ground that could be had, but I'm just being a realist about it, I'm not trying to fictionalize the situation, and I'm not trying to glorify something that is really not that glorious for other people either. So, but let's take a look at this. This is interesting. And I think what I saw was China's military response to a buildup. There seems to be more NATO nations over there, and it has a lot to do with, guess what this is, y'all? What Trump has said. So you see, I mean, this is what I expect and I suspect. When Trump issued that warning, a lot of the other NATO nations are like, okay, so you don't want to be a leader, you want to be a follower. Okay, let's do that. Okay, now
share an unparalleled defense relationship forged by common values and deep historical connections. That's on display right now in the South China Sea, a global shipping route that has been thrust to chaos, with China beginning to flex its maritime muscle across the region. CTV's Adrian Gobriel is on board a Canadian warship sent there to promote calm.
In these troubled waters, for months, territorial disputes have been escalating, with clashes in the South Sea between coast guards from the Philippines and China. For the last week, the Royal Canadian Navy has been shadowed by multiple Chinese warships through the East and South China Sea. Previously classified, CTV News can now share that the USS Higgins has joined HMCS Ottawa on this deployment as part of Operation Horizon to promote rules-based order in the Indo-Pacific.
Sir, welcome aboard. Good to be on board.
U.S. Navy Commander James Billings, the second in charge of USS Higgins, sat down with CTV News to discuss the value of collaborating with Canada.
Working together, proving this interchangeability is one step closer to just being able to plug and play should a conflict arise.
Conflict readiness includes collecting intel while at sea. Enter the Canadian Air Force Cyclone helicopter, call sign Griffin. CTV News was given the opportunity to accompany the crew on an operation in the South China Sea.
The Royal Canadian Air Force crew here on board Griffin are using radar and sonar technology to scan the sea below for any submarines and any warships that may be ahead to ensure safe passage for HMCS Ottawa. Now, anything can really happen in this airspace. We're currently near a spot called Fiery Cross. It used to be a reef, and the Chinese built an artificial island on top, complete with an airbase, combat aircraft, and mobile missile launch.
All right. Now, what comes to my mind right here is another aspect to NATO. NATO is comprised of different countries with different military programs, different science and engineering programs. NATO countries are pretty strong in terms of science and engineering because they have a standard outside of the US. So I'm not talking about the United States. They're the one that's very different. They have a standard of free higher learning, which means if you want to contribute to engineering, if you want to be an engineer, if you want to learn, not really too much is stopping you from being an engineer, right? Or being in the field that requires engineers to invent things, right? Now, weaponry, defense. Now, the thing about NATO is they all have their different programs, because most of the NATO nations outside of the US have free higher learning or even paid higher learning that you don't pay any debt to. So that means their programs and the things they create are not copycat stuff, right? So places like Russia, China, they tend to, when they want to do defense, and then when they want to do other military activities, they tend to focus on the United States and trying to reverse engineer to either find weaknesses in the United States military, um, or to copy it and be an equal. But in a war, because of NATO has so many different nations combining its strengths, it's very, very hard to defend in a war from NATO, because what you do to defend one may not quite cut it for the other regarding the engineering and science programs. They may not be exact. You see what I'm saying? So that has made NATO a threat. Now, what does that have to do with third world nations or emerging economies? When you see yourself caught in a battle, between superpowers, China, US, Russia, these kind of groups, or even you could say EU is a superpower, right? But EU is a very different type of superpower because it's not one nation. Again, so it's still, they share some things. They utilize each other where their strengths are, and that could be very, very difficult to combat because they're all very strong in education and engineering. Hell, you have engineers from the EU working in the United States. You have them working in Africa. You have them working in South America. You see what I mean? Many, maybe not more, but many. And so that's something to think about when you are getting involved in these events, global affairs, right? Now, what I see right now going on, because it's a little chaotic, you have Trump there, and Trump has presented a different scenario. He has said he doesn't want to be the leader of NATO. He has pretty much said he's going to go against NATO. He has pretty much said he doesn't see NATO allies as a strength because they haven't been paying, 1.10% is that they should be, that they agreed to in a non-binding agreement. Non-binding means it's an idea. If you move towards this idea, we all get stronger, but it means if you're off 1 or 2%, you're still good. That's what non-binding means. And Trump took a non-binding situation and tried to pick at it. So now these countries like Germany, Canada, France may be back on the picture, the UK, many, they have an opportunity to do things that they didn't before. That's what that means. Now, I call it musical chairs. So some nations may see it as, oh, this is good, China doing this, or oh, Russia doing this, or even the United States is doing this. They might think that, and that's okay. But I mean, right now, they might think that that's good what Trump is doing. But to me, if I was a emerging economy, I would just call it musical chairs. I would not be so convinced that things are going to turn out well just because there's a change in the head, you see, or just because there's just a dispute about who's doing what best. You see? So yeah, my answer to that, most people know, is it's a good time to not be fighting with your neighbor if you're a third world, if you're an emerging economy. If you're an African, if you're in Africa, it's a good time to not be at war with your neighbor. That's what it tells me. And I'm not saying any of these countries plan on being hostile towards any particular African country, but they tend to make money off of war, even if it's in Africa, is what I'm saying, because other nations are not responsible for your well-being. You are responsible yourself for the decisions you make and how you treat your own neighbors. And if you all die because you're so busy being at war with each other that you can't think, so be it. That's your decision. No other country, no other region of the world is responsible for whether you live or whether you die, for whether you have a great life and progress or whether you all commit genocide towards each other. No one else is responsible for that except you first. If your decisions aren't done well for yourselves, you can leave it up to the UN if you want. You can leave it up to somebody else if you want. So you can leave it up to Russia. You can leave it up to China. You can leave it up to the US. You can leave it up to the EU if you want. Or you could take leadership and responsibility for yourselves. Treat each other with some respect and admiration, and some respect for the fact that you know your best interests lie with each other's relationships, at least being fair and respectful. But that's what that tells me. But let's listen some more.
During our deployment,
I know I can ramble sometimes, but
as the Air Force traveled closer to Fiery Cross, a Chinese ship tracking below made this call over marine radio back to HMCS Ottawa.
Canadian warship 341. This is Chinese Navy warship 571. Your hello is proceeding to our island for avoid misunderstanding. Out course and keep away from our island.
The Canadian Air Force pilots followed international regulations, staying a minimum of 22 kilometers away from the Chinese base at sea, though following airspace regulations didn't prevent a dangerous event from taking place during a similar deployment in October 2023.
We began to have to go lower and lower in the air as the Chinese jets came lower and lower above our aircraft.
Captain Theodore Yan, a Canadian Air Combat Systems officer, was part of the crew on board a Cyclone in October 2023, when a Chinese fighter jet intercepted them in international airspace, firing flares in their direction.
I did look out of the cockpit windshield and see the flares come out in front of us. The thought that if one of those flares had actually collided with us or gone into one of our engines, it could have been a really bad day.
Thankfully on that.
All right, let me back up from this now. Let me see here. Let me check out a few other reports on this. Okay, that was that one. Let's go back. Boom. Let me see. Oh, wait a second. Same story. I don't have to.
Canada and the U.S. share an unparalleled defense relationship forged by common values and.
All right, let me see here. Trump wants Canada's water. You see what I mean? You see? And this is exactly the type of of diplomacy coming out of Trump, because diplomacy is when a leader talks, the things a leader says, the things a leader, communicates. Now check this out. At the same time you have that, look at what Trump is doing. This is why they're going to become more active. Now people may think that that's a good thing, right? But you will then be left with their leadership too. So is that what you want? I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad idea right now either. I'm not saying, but you have to think one step ahead, because U.S. presidents change all the time. U.S. policy seems to be one dealing with places like Cuba where it changes all the time, and it can change. It can change again. So you got to think 3 steps ahead. We got to ask ourselves, is this logical? Is this rational? Or is there a domino effect? And what will the domino effect be? Will the domino effect be that things get more fairer for everybody on Earth? Or will the domino effect be the rich get richer? Or will the domino effect be things become more oppressive for the average person on Earth? Or will the domino effect be the Cold War, where people are just being sold weapons and fighting their neighbor? Or will the domino effect be, what's the effect going to be? Let's
Deadly
look.
and devastating wildfires in Los Angeles are drawing new attention to U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's comments about one of Canada's most valued natural resources.
We have millions of gallons of water pouring down from the north with the snow caps in Canada and all pouring down. And they have essentially a very large faucet.
So President-elect Donald Trump says water from Canada.
Okay, this obviously is ridiculous, but
could be diverted to California to reduce water shortages. Now this.
And he's going to do that by force or what?
This is raising concerns over how Canada is protecting currently its water supply. For more this morning, we are joined from Calgary by Tricia Stadnick. She's the Canada Research Chair in Hydrologic Modeling at the University of Calgary. Thanks for joining us so early this morning.
Hydro is water.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
All right, experts say they think Donald Trump is talking about the Columbia River. So just to give everybody a reference point here, the 2,000 kilometer long river starts in BC. It then flows through Washington and Oregon before it ends up in the Pacific Ocean, where's this very large faucet that Trump is referring to, and who controls it?
Okay. Yeah, so actually there is no faucet at the moment. What he's referring to is the fact that the power of the river, the water in the river, could be harnessed before it reaches the Pacific Ocean. He would do that within American territory, not within Canadian territory. And he's talking about building, which doesn't exist currently, a diversion pipeline to take the...
Let me tell you something, y'all. Right off of the bat, this is bullshit. Right off of the bat. And the reason why it's bullshit, I'm going to tell you why. Because you cannot build a hydropower dam in 4 years. You can't build it in 4 years. You can't. This is not, hydroponic dams are not, should not be issues of Republican and Democrat fighting. It shouldn't be a Republican initiative. Hydroponic dams take so long. This takes several administrations. And this is what's ridiculous, because that's one of the things that takes. It might take 20 damn years. Let me see something. Trump is such a. Who does he consult with? How long does it take to build a hydro dam? A large. Let's see here, because we talking about. Let me see how many. Let me look. Let's see here where that can. I mean, Okay, what river are they talking about? Let me go back here. On what river? The Columbia River. The West Coast Columbia River. Let me let this play. I'll look it up.
Yeah, so actually there is no faucet at the moment. What he's referring to is the fact that the power of the river, the water in the river, could be harnessed before it reaches the Pacific Ocean. He would do that within American territory, not within Canadian territory. And he's talking about building, which doesn't exist currently, a diversion pipeline to take the water to the drier parts of California.
He has described it as essentially, Canada's letting this water rush right into the ocean.
Listen, 5 to 10 years on average, if it's done by, the biggest, engineering firms. That would be the U.S. military. That would be the Army of Engineers, essentially, right? That wouldn't be a private investment. And on top of it, it sounds like a scam, because if you're not talking about the Army of Engineers, then you're talking about a private company doing it, which will take long too, and they will probably charge you more for energy than what would be if the people built a dam with the people's money, using collective bargaining by the people, the taxpayer. You see what I'm saying? So this is kind of weird, but you have to ask yourself, do these kind of provocations give an opportunity for Canada to take more of a leap into the world stage? Now, Canada is already a big power. They're not a weak power. You see what I mean? They've had a long time to develop their capabilities, undisturbed periods in time. So to me, it just makes me wonder, like, what is this all about? But let's go on. Now, we've seen that Trump is saying that a day ago, right? 2 days ago, 3 days ago, right? They still going down this thing about criticizing California and
Canada and the U.S. share an
But hold on here. Let me go backwards now. Boom. Now, I wanted to see. Okay, the South Korean president was arrested, obviously, for corruption. Look at this. You see this right here? You see this, right? So they want to go into Greenland for lithium. Now, here's the thing. Once again, Trump threatened his allies for something, right?
Today we will talk
for something that the U.S. already has. The U.S. already has defense treaty with the Greenland and Denmark, and they already have trade agreements with both, right? So there's no need to be hostile towards them. In fact, everything that Trump is doing, you have to ask, is it just that Trump wants the right to his own? Does he want to own the lithium in Greenland? Does he want one of his billionaire friends to own the lithium in Greenland? Is that what this is about? Because Greenland already has the ability to trade with you. Denmark already has the ability to trade with you. They're doing that every day on a whole list of topics. So why would Trump be so hostile in his approach? Let me see something here. Let me let this one play out.
Talk about 40-year-old Alex, who worked hard to feed his family. Quantum AI changed his.
Oops. This is actually Fox News. So keep that in mind.
All dependence on lithium is the number one that they harvest that's got the world enthralled. They need it. They have to have it. Under the permafrost in Greenland is a lot of lithium. That's what this is about. Now, the news media.
Now, for those that don't know, lithium is for battery storage for EVs, EV cars, electrical power. That's what it's about. So I want to give a little tip to folks out there. Lithium is not just an issue for the United States, right? But the United States is already, they already have talks with Greenland and Denmark. They've been doing that. There's nothing that's ever stopped the United States from getting lithium or any other thing. Now, how could you do it? How would you get it done? Trump seems to have a problem with that because Trump seems to want to use force, right? But there's also something very strange here because Trump has an opposing argument that he also makes to the American people, and that is he's pretty much against electric cars. At the same time, Elon Musk is pretty much the person that funded his presidency. Yes, buying X or buying Twitter, converting it to X to be a mouthpiece for Trump's election, that was $40 billion. Elon Musk has been pretty much because he's violated certain laws in the EU, he's been put out of the EU. But the EU still buys American cars that are EVs, Ford and things like that. Believe it or not, American companies, they sell EVs in the EU, right? Now Trump on the surface, he's telling you he's against electric cars. But is it that secretly Trump, what he's against is just that he never invested in any of it in the first place? Could that really be his motive? And could it be that the people who really didn't invest in it in the first place are trying to play catch up to the people that did? Believe it or not, there's American corporations that did start investing long ago. People like Trump went against it because they were beholden to the oil barons. And now he's having a conversation about lithium in Greenland. Okay. Is that what you want to do? Okay. This is really getting funny.
Media probably don't care. The ideologues certainly don't. But it is a national security situation because China is running such a big deficit with the United States, which means they make so much money off of us. It's propping up their very vicious communist regime, the money they get for the USA. Trump knows that. He wants Apple to come back to the USA, wants them to stop making and operating so much in China, and he wants to compete on the lithium market. That is what this is all about.
I would argue that, or add, I should say, that lithium also powers all of Tesla's
Now listen. See, they're going to say
cars. So there is that part.
Yeah, absolutely.
As well.
And look. You see, Bill Riley hesitated to say that. Let's go back. Look,
market. That is what this is propping up. It is a national security situation because China is running such a big deficit with the United States, which means they make so much money off of us. It's propping up their very vicious communist regime, the money they get for the USA. Trump knows that. He wants Apple to come back to the USA, wants them to stop making and operating so much in China, and he wants to compete on the lithium market. That is what this is all about.
this man is openly lying to people. I'm gonna tell you. See, in order to get a big lie across, there has to be some truth. Look, you already know that Trump doesn't want Apple to come back to the United States. That's not what this is about. Because his people, like Elon Musk and the other Vivek Ramaswamy, the Indian billionaire, they've already said they need immigrants to come in and work in the tech industry. They've already said that, right? So what's the missing link? Check this out, y'all. I'm telling you, this is all shenanigans. This is all Wizard of Oz. This is all man behind the curtain. Check this out. Does Denmark trade and Greenland trade with the United States? And what do they already trade? See, check this out.
Yes, Greenland engages in trade with both the United States and Denmark, although its trade relationships vary in scale and focus. Greenland's trade with the United States. 1. Exports to the US. Greenland exports seafood, e.g. shrimp, halibut and other fish products, which form the backbone of its economy, to the United States. The US is not Greenland's largest trading partner, but maintains a steady import relationship, particularly for seafood. 2 imports from the US. Greenland imports machinery, equipment, fuel, and other goods from the US. The United States also provides military and logistical support through the Thule Air Base, indirectly contributing to Greenland's economy. 3. Strategic importance. Greenland has a growing geopolitical significance due to its location in the Arctic and rich natural resources, e.g. rare earth minerals. The US has expressed interest in strengthening economic and security ties with Greenland in recent years. Greenland's trade with Denmark. 1. Exports to Denmark. Greenland sends a significant portion of its seafood exports to Denmark, which acts as a hub for further distribution within the EU. Denmark also manages Greenland's shipping routes for trade with Europe. Imports from Denmark. Denmark is Greenland's primary supplier of goods, including food, beverages, machinery, and manufactured products. The economic relationship is bolstered by Denmark's substantial financial support to Greenland through an annual block grant, approximately 600 million US, which helps sustain Greenland's economy. 3. Colonial ties. As a part of the Kingdom of Denmark, Greenland has deeply intertwined economic and political relationships with Denmark. This includes preferential trade agreements and subsidies. Summary of key trade patterns. Main exports: seafood, shrimp, fish, halibut. Main imports: machinery, fuel, manufactured goods, food and beverages. Top partners: Denmark first, other EU nations and the United States. Would you like more information on Greenland's trade potential, such as its rare earth mineral resources?
Yes. Here we go. Check this out. Watch. Again, folks, the United States doesn't need to threaten its allies to have trade agreements with them because they already have agreements with them. So you really have to wonder who takes the approach that Trump makes, because Trump seems to be very, very desperate to make deals that really you could already be making just by asking, but just by doing regular business. Look.
Greenland holds immense potential in the global trade of rare earth minerals and other natural resources, which are increasingly critical for the global economy. Rare earth mineral resources in Greenland. 1. Rich deposits. Greenland is estimated to have vast reserves of rare earth elements, REEs, including neodymium, praseodymium, and dysprosium, essential for electric vehicles, EVs, wind turbines, electronics, military technologies. The Fanafield project in southern Greenland has one of the world's largest deposits of rare earth minerals. 2. Strategic importance. Rare earths are vital for reducing dependence on China, which dominates the global REE supply chain. Greenland's proximity to Europe and North America makes it a strategic alternative for these critical resources. 3. Environmental concerns. Mining projects, such as the Kvarnefield project, have faced opposition due to environmental risks and the potential impact on the Arctic ecosystem. Uranium, often found with rare earths, has raised additional safety concerns. Economic and trade opportunities. 1. Global demand. With the global push toward green energy and EV adoption, demand for rare earth minerals is expected to grow significantly, making Greenland a key player. 2. Partners and investors. Denmark and the EU, interested in reducing reliance on Chinese rare earths. The US. In 2020, the US Department of Defense committed funding to explore mineral development projects in Greenland. China. Greenland Minerals Limited, an Australian company partly backed by Chinese interests, has pursued mining operations, though these are contentious. 3. Challenges. Infrastructure. Greenland's remote and icy terrain complicates transportation and mining logistics. Political debate. Greenlandic policymakers are divided between economic development and environmental protection. Other resources in Greenland. 1. Oil and gas. Greenland has untapped reserves of offshore oil and natural gas. However, due to environmental and economic concerns, Greenland announced a halt to new oil and gas exploration in 2021. 2. Fishing industry. The backbone of Greenland's economy, seafood exports, particularly shrimp and halibut, contribute significantly to trade revenue. Summary: Greenland's rare earth minerals are a game changer for global markets, providing an opportunity to diversify supply chains away from China. However, environmental challenges, logistical issues, and political considerations will shape how these resources are developed and traded. Would you like a deeper dive into Greenland's specific mining projects or their geopolitical implications?
Now, so here, let me just see something here. Map. Let's go to, let's just say a map. I want people to look here. Take a look. So you already hear that Trump on one hand, he tells people that he doesn't care about wind turbines. He doesn't care about EV vehicles. He dismisses it all as hoax. Global warming. He dismisses global warming, not global warming, but he dismisses climate change as a hoax. Greenland doesn't, because the people of Greenland, they depend, fishing is one of the things. So if you have uranium spilling out into the waters, that's going to destroy your fishing. People like Trump generally don't care about that. But the rest of the world depends on that, right? People like you in the markets that buy fish, protein, depend on that, right? Now, what about the Greenlandic people? What is uranium like when it starts spilling into their own water supply, fresh water supply? What's up with that? So again, oil and just allowing corporations to own, and this is what Trump is proposing, because everything that he wants is corporation based. It's all corporation interest, and corporations tend to not care about the effects of people. This is what we're seeing with climate change. Now, here we go. Take a look at this. Look at Canada. Look at this. All this is Canada, right? The US is down here. Canada is a trading partner and a defense partner with the US right now. It doesn't, its population is not that booming. The EU is right here. You see the EU? The EU is right here. Denmark already has had relationships with Greenland, and has ethnic ties with Greenland as well. Denmark has never been hostile to the US. In fact, it's one of the United States' biggest allies. And one reason for that, you may not understand this, may not know it, but this is the polar caps, right? So a lot of this is not even, you're not even going to really, the US is monitoring this. You see, I mean, not the US, but the EU is monitoring this. And then another route for Russian submarines happens to be right here, through the Baltic Sea. And Denmark, you see, Baltic Sea. Let's go in deeper. Let's go in a little. I don't know if you can see this. Let me open this up. Probably can't see this, y'all. Sorry about that. Here, you see, this is the Russia. This is part of Russia. You see, they have submarines that come through here more frequently. And it's because the polar caps are not there, right? Now, this is what the U.S. has been monitoring, because they tend to have, get submarines out here on the Atlantic. And if they want to defend for that, it's you either have an ally or you do it yourself. That's what this is about. You either have an ally or you do it yourself. That's what that is really about, right? Same thing, with China submarines, right? Even though you will get Chinese submarines, you will get them, but you either have allies to help you or you don't. Now, this is a crisis. Trump creates more of a crisis than anything else, because he's not being clear to the American people what his own personal interest in this is, in terms of how he goes about business. Trump is not being clear because Trump has stuff to hide. And it's obvious what he has to hide. What he has to hide is his business interest. That's pretty much it. So let's continue.
I would argue that, or add, I should say, that lithium also powers all of Tesla's cars. So there is that that part.
Yeah, absolutely.
As well. And you're right. We are very lucky to have you on the show.
Look at Bill O'Reilly. Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Well, here's the thing. Elon Musk paid $40 billion pretty much to get $40 billion plus $200 million to get Trump in office. What American president has ever faced something like that before? Which American president has ever faced the richest man on earth buying an election? Who has ever faced that? That was never an issue before. And Elon Musk is not really American. He's a what do they call it? Naturalized, meaning it doesn't mean you were born there. Naturalized means you became a citizen after you immigrated, right? He's not even a second generation immigrant. You see what I'm saying? And to give way to an individual like that without doing it honestly and openly in a conversation in a democratic process, American people need to, and everybody else, Canada, the EU, everybody else needs to ask themselves, is that what they want for their future? Because now you have just set precedent. So you either have to denounce that as being a precedent, meaning a new standard, or you have to go along with it and go along with it again the next time it happens again and again and again. You see? Yeah, but damn, at least Fox it's really weird when Fox tends to jump out there and say something real. That's that total propaganda. I mean, this is a fact that you probably wouldn't even hear on any other news network right now because Trump got CNN, ABC, all of them in the bag. Like straight up. That's what happens when you got what is it what Fox News don't like about Elon Musk? That's very, very strange. So look, let's just go back here. I was looking for something else, right? Lithium, Greenland, and I don't know how much of you all know this, but stocks is something I've been into for a minute. And lithium, precious minerals, gold, lithium is about to be as precious as gold, by the way, for those of you that don't know. And EV charging stations, and windmills also. By the way, Denmark is one of the leading nations in windmill technology and production. Okay, so keep in mind, they already have business ties with the United States. And Denmark also was one of the leaders in the climate change initiative. So is this how you want to treat an ally? Is it necessary to treat the allies that way? No, because anytime the United States wanted to go into an open and free and fair discussion with Greenland or Denmark on these minerals, the opportunity has been there the entire time. It's not something they've been resisting. It's not something that they've been saying no to. No, all they've been asking is saying, let's make a free and fair conversation that's open and democratic, and one that has a result that thinks about the well-being of the native citizens or the citizens of Greenland also. That's all they've been saying. And as you know, corporations don't always tend to want to think about the effects on the local populations that they do business in. So I think American citizens might want corporations to be accountable for their footprint also. Now let's see here. There's an infection coming out of China. People don't know if it's really that or not. Right. Let me see something here. I think I was looking for this, but I want to see. This is really weird because I got to do something about the algorithm. Let me see here. This apparently is live. Let's see what it looks like. go. China has reacted. Let me take it back. Okay. Is China-Taiwan war imminent? Okay, well, keep in mind, 5 days left for Biden's presidency. And the big question is, what is Trump going to do about it? And you see Canadian ships headed over there, because what you got to understand is that this does not just affect the U.S. A lot of ships is going to be headed over there too. A lot of, you're going to see more, you're going to see more activity here just based on what Trump said. And you need to really ask yourself, how's the economy going to look when Trump actually becomes the president? Is inflation going to go up even higher? Just ask yourself. Based on trade, is the United States self-sufficient? Just ask yourself, do you produce enough fruits and vegetables and eggs and chickens and meat for, to appease your consumption? You know, are you ready to do all those things yourself in order to reduce inflation? It doesn't look like it. Why? Because you don't do all those things in a snap of a finger. It takes several administrations, concerted effort in a positive direction to get anything done. It doesn't matter what you want to do. That's what it really takes. So Trump's approach to dealing with problems seems like it's just creating more problems than are actually really there. Yeah, but anyway, let's see here. Chinese satellite launch have involved flight paths over Taiwan, right? Okay, we get that. Let me go back. See, some of this is propaganda. Mirror now in Taiwan confirmed prior satellite launches. You know, some nations have an invested interest in there being war, or in, you know, one nation winning over the other. You never know. Monitoring foreign aircraft isn't recognized as territorial airspace. China-Taiwan showdown? Okay. Yeah. Let's go back. I don't even know why people are wild. You know, people should be a little bit more picky about the news. But let's see here. Prefab. Okay, hold on. You know, like I said, diplomacy is usually the best way to go about things. And you know, Trump did promise less wars. That's what Trump promised. Let's see if that's what's going to happen. Let's see here. Yeah, there seem to be something's not right with the algorithm. Shocking economic figure on the line between U.S.-China export wars. Right, you got the thing about TikTok. I mean, let's see here. Military response to 90 Chinese ships. I want to see the alts. I want to see what China says, though. You know, there were during the Trump administration, there were 3 Chinese balloons, what they suspect to be 3 Chinese spy balloons during the Trump administration that flew right over the U.S. Unabated. And when Biden became president, they attempted to send another balloon, and Biden didn't blow it up immediately. They didn't do that because they said the debris could be harmful. They don't know what's in it, you know. And so they chose to wait until it hit the coastline, and then they blew it up. But Trump, you know, he wasn't even aware of it, apparently, or he didn't respond to it when he was told about it. And so Trump, the only statements you have about Trump with these 3 balloons that did go over the US during his administration is after he was president. He didn't, he only started talking about it when Biden blew up the balloon, right? But he never explained to the public what these balloons were during his own administration. And it seems very peculiar because it almost sounds like Trump told the military to not release it. It almost sounds like the news media didn't even notice it. So what I'm saying to y'all is pay attention. The news media is really not looking that great right now. Only China wins in trade war. Look at this. Again. Here we go. This is Canada responding to Trump 12 hours ago. I mean, American citizens pay attention to social other people. Huh?
Welcome back. In his confirmation hearing today, Pete Hegseth, President-elect Trump's pick for defense secretary, refused to say whether he would carry out an order from President Trump to seize Greenland or to take over the Panama Canal. We do expect similar questions about Trump's foreign policy and his desire for territorial expansion tomorrow. That's when Trump's pick to lead the State Department, Senator Marco Rubio, will appear before his colleagues for his confirmation hearing. Recently, Kristen Welker spoke to the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, and began by asking him about Trump's threats to impose 25% tariffs on all imports from Canada and the use of economic force to make Canada the 51st state, and whether he's taking those threats seriously.
I have to take these threats seriously. When the president or President-elect Trump says something, it's really concerning. I have a different approach. Why don't we work together, build the 2 greatest countries in the world, make us the most prosperous, the richest, the wealthiest, and safest 2 countries in the world. We have a lot of sectors that we could support the U.S., and we do on a daily basis. I just think we're stronger together, and that's the message we're sending across the U.S.
Prime Minister Trudeau has said that there is no way that Canada would ever become the 51st state. Do you agree with the outgoing Prime Minister?
I do agree with the outgoing Prime Minister, and I think everyone feels that way for the most part in Canada. But there's a real opportunity on a trade deal, working together, making us stronger. Decouple a lot of products that are coming from China, bring them back to the U.S. and Canada. Let's create strong, good American jobs. That's what I believe in. Chris and I spent 20 years of my life in our Chicago facility and our New Jersey facility. I love the U.S. I absolutely love the Americans. And I know they love us too. I've talked to endless governors and senators and Congress people from both sides of the aisle, and no one's saying what the president's saying. So I'm concerned why he's ratcheted it up over the
So listen, okay, I'm sorry.
last couple of days.
And
look, I'm gonna tell you, this is what I suspect. I suspect all of the weaknesses, what you see out of Trump is largely weakness. Trump goes from, the possibility that people have compromising information on him like Putin, to his personal investments with Putin, his personal relationship with Putin and his businesses there that he had with Putin in Russia, to, and these innuendos of sexual impropriety in Russia with girls and things like that. Jeffrey Epstein, stuff like this. Because Jeffrey Epstein, people said that he might have been committing espionage, right? And Putin may have his hands on it. You don't know if the U.S. government might have their hands on it. You don't know what's going on, because if it has international implications, a lot of times they keep it in. But it looks like Trump swings from that type of reasoning to self-interest. And it looks like because he was weak, he decided to pull in billionaires that could help him. In exchange for that, he's become threatening over trade with his allies and no one else. And listen, y'all, the United States doing diplomacy is in a strong position with all its allies. Canada, Greenland, Denmark, and the rest of them are not hostile towards Americans and are eager to continue the trade and defense cooperations that they've already been doing. So any conversation could have been had in a normal, civil, democratic way that respects Western values. It seems to be sorry about that. It seems to be like Trump does things out of personal interest, whether it's someone revealing secrets about him, like Putin, about Jeffrey Epstein, things like this, or it being his own personal interests in his pockets. And I can see the play. I can see how billionaires can help you get out of your first problem, which is you're looking pretty bad business wise, and you're looking pretty bad with the espionage, and that they can help clear that up if you do them favors. And it seems like Trump is motivated primarily by that, almost desperate. And the American people, and any people for that matter, Chinese people, Russian people, Danish people, Greenlandic people, French people, Brazilian people, we can pretty much agree that a personally desperate president is probably not the best leader, because you become very, very, how can I say this? Telegraphic. People can see the play a mile away. Yo, oh my goodness. I mean, it seems like that's what it is. It seems like that's what it is, y'all. So, yeah. I don't know what else to say. Let's go.
You talk about potentially renegotiating a trade deal. It is possible that President-elect Trump is using the threat of tariffs as a bargaining chip. Now, according to the CBC, of course, the broadcast network in Canada, senior officials in Ottawa are considering putting retaliatory tariffs, if Trump does move forward, imposing them on steel products produced.
Now, this is the problem for the American people. Trump and the U.S. is not in a position to threaten its allies. The United States is not in a position to be hostile towards its allies. That would be the most insane approach. Who does that hostility benefit in the end? Who does it benefit in the end? Let's hear.
In Michigan and Pennsylvania, and orange juice from Florida as a way to send a message to Trump. Do you believe that officials in Canada will target those states that also happen to be critical to Republicans?
That's the last thing I'd want to do. But if we get faced at 25% tariffs, we have no choice. And no one wins in these tariff wars. No one wins in these trade wars. The only people that win is China. They're the only people that win, not Americans, not Canadians. So, let's hope that doesn't happen.
Let me shift gears a little bit. You've announced
These tariff wars. That's the last thing I'd want to do.
Orange juice from Florida as a way to send a message to Trump. Do you believe that officials in Canada will target those states that also happen to be critical to Republicans?
That's the last thing I'd want to do. But
it's the last thing they would want to do is not buy all those products from Florida. It's the last thing they would want to do, to not buy all those products from the United States. But they have options, and American people need to understand this. Canada, if it wants to buy fruit from Brazil, if it wants to buy fruit from Cuba, if it wants to buy fruit from anybody, it can. It doesn't have to buy fruit from the United States. Although the distance means the corporations and the trade is even a better deal, because you waste less time on fuel and manpower. Come on, y'all. Just, put your minds to the task of figuring out what's going on and how you're going to be affected. Transporting the goods cost by the mile. and it costs gasoline and manpower too.
Faced at 25% tariffs, we have no choice. No one wins in these tariff wars. No one wins in these trade wars. The only people that win is China. They're the only people that win, not Americans, not Canadians. So, that doesn't happen.
Let me shift gears a little bit. You've announced you're going to be leading a delegation of Canadian premiers to Washington next month. What do you hope to achieve, and what is your message both to lawmakers in Congress and, frankly, the American public about this potential trade war?
Yeah, really to inform the American public. We're running ads. We're hitting over 100 million Americans every day with our positive ads, working together, what we have to offer to the U.S., no matter if it's our energy or, critical minerals, rare earth minerals. And there's many different areas, but that.
Listen, y'all. Rare earth minerals, again, the United States and Canada, mining companies, timber companies operate already on both sides of the border. You cannot punish Canadian mineral companies without punishing American mineral companies. And vice versa. Canada cannot punish American mineral companies by tariffs without punishing their own mineral companies. Timber and precious minerals. So Trump, he is really out to harm the American people, the average taxpayer. Sure, the business people, the American business people might survive that kind of hit momentarily, but the bulk of the hit is going to be on the average everyday citizen. Yes, it is. And inflation will go and hit the roof if you mess with Canada that way. I mean, and Canada's not even threatening us. Canada is basically, it's one of the U.S. biggest allies and partners in everything. It just doesn't make any sense. And I'm pretty sure most of the people in the military understand that. Most of the people, except the ideologue Republicans, seem to get that message. Most people that are not ideologues, that are reasonable, get it because they let the facts speak for themselves, not what they want or what they want to imagine or whatever they can imagine. Imagination is good, but facts save you. Yeah. All right, y'all. I'm gonna be out. I got some other things I got to do. I appreciate everybody. Please hit the like button. Please share the video if you think there's something good in it for you or for your fellow friend, for your neighborhood, no matter where you are in the world. If you're in the United States, if you're in Georgia, if you're in California, share it. Click like. If you're in Australia, share it and click like. If you're in Canada, share it and click like. If you're in the EU, share it and click like. If you're in Greenland, share it and click like, because I'm not spitting nothing but the facts. Only the facts. I'm not biased. I'm not an ideologue. I'm a person that deals with reason and ration. Okay? So on that note, I appreciate everybody. I'm going to see y'all later. Everybody be good, all right?